Chapter 29, First Year, Finding My Footing. For years, my parents had pushed me toward a mold that never fit. My mother's voice carried judgment more than guidance, insisting that engineering was the practical choice, while my father stayed silent. They called it security. In truth, it was control. By the time I began graduate school, that pressure had faded into the background. The shame of working unskilled jobs after Georgia Tech was gone. I was finally studying something that mattered to me and beginning to see myself in a new light. Earlier career testing had shown two clear directions that suited me best. First, the social and helping professions. Second, the creative fields. Engineering wasn't even close to being a match. An English degree would have made sense and might have spared me years of trying to live someone else's plan. But at the time, such a choice hadn't felt possible. The idea that I owed my parents anything for that path wouldn't even occur to me until decades later. Now, in Wilmington, I was finally free to find my own path. Gone was the guilt that had shadowed every step of my earlier life. I no longer needed to prove myself through technical work or live under the illusion that a degree defined my worth. I was starting over, this time on my own terms. The path forward was human, not mechanical. I was entering the field of human services, learning by doing, and discovering that connection, empathy, and consistency mattered more than credentials. My early roles were paraprofessional, positions that didn't require a degree but demanded presence and care. My first placement came through the Southeastern Center for Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Abuse Services, MH/DD/SAS. That's where I met Robert. His father brought him to the DAY program, a structured environment for adults with developmental disabilities. Robert had both an intellectual disability and severe autism. He didn't speak, so I learned sign language to communicate with him. We spent our days working through simple routines, meals, short walks, basic tasks. When we went outside, I stayed between him and the street to keep him safe. Being responsible for someone's well-being was new to me. So was the quiet pride that came from earning trust without words. The setting was relaxed and communal. Staff drifted in and out, working with clients, chatting, exchanging ideas. While keeping an eye on Robert, I could talk with them, and through those conversations, opportunities began to open up. Networking wasn't about selling myself. It was about being there, dependable, curious, human. Soon I was offered shifts at local group homes, supporting residents who lived with both developmental disabilities and mental illness. The work was steady and the staff began to know me. One role led to another, and for the first time in my life, people saw my reliability, not my resume. One of those residents was James. He lived alone in a house staffed 24 hours a day. James had cerebral palsy, intermittent explosive disorder, and an intellectual disability. My role was to help him learn boundaries so he could remain part of his community, to go to the library, the park, or a restaurant without being banned for hugging strangers. He was the opposite of shy, which made our outings unpredictable. "James, you can say hi," I'd remind him, "but you can't hug everyone." He'd grin, nod, and then wander too close again, unable to help himself. His home was just a few blocks from where Lynn and I lived, and with her permission, I'd occasionally bring him by for short visits. She already knew James from her office building, where his care team sometimes met. She handled him with calm understanding, never alarmed, always kind. When James started to drift too close, Lynn would raise her hands and say softly but firmly, "James, Her tone carried both kindness and command. I wasn't far away, always watching, and the moment I looked up, James would glance at me, uneasy, then let out a low, rumbling laugh. Uh-oh, he's mad now. It wasn't anger, it was guidance. Lynn knew that, and she trusted me to balance firmness with compassion. Well, we need to go anyway, I'd say, keeping my voice steady, helping him learn that boundaries didn't mean rejection. Lynn would smile at him, still gentle. He's okay, right, James? She'd say. A question that was really a reassurance, a way of confirming that everything was still safe. Then, as I turned toward the door, she'd ask, "When will you be home, honey?" Her eyes met mine, steady, full of warmth. She reached up her hand behind my head and drew me close for a kiss. It wasn't perfunctory, like the dutiful gestures I'd grown up with. There was nothing automatic about it. It was deliberate, an expression of desire, of connection, of belonging. For that moment, the world stopped. Her touch said, "You have a home." My silence answered, "I know." Behind us, James gave another low laugh, wanting the same comfort, without understanding the difference. I guided him gently toward the door, his laughter fading as we stepped into the air outside. I felt the imprint of Lynn's kiss still with me, a reminder that love could be steady and constant, even in a life built on helping others hold themselves together. By the time I started graduate school, I was already rooted in this new identity. My first-year program at the University of South Carolina required a macro-level project, social work at the community and systems level. I chose a low-income neighborhood north of Market Street, several blocks from the Cape Fear River. It was a predominantly black area, shaped by decades of segregation and neglect. But I didn't pick it out of theory. I knew Wilmington. I knew where people struggled. Through my growing network, I met church leaders, barbers, and longtime residents. They spoke about housing shortages, unemployment, and being ignored by city officials. I didn't arrive with a clipboard or survey. I sat with them, asked questions, listened. For someone who had once avoided speaking in high school classes, that alone was growth. In high school, I couldn't have approached classmates to ask for their vote. Now I was walking into communities and asking what mattered to them. That's what the macro-level work revealed, the bridge between systems and souls. Later I'd move into micro-level practice, working one-on-one with individuals and families. But that first year taught me something more fundamental, that presence, humility, and listening could change not only others, but me. By the end of that year, I had shed the weight of shame. I wasn't hiding behind degrees or scripts. I was growing, learning, and connecting. I was no longer the invisible son, trying to meet someone else's expectations. I was becoming the person that I was meant to be.